All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Of Like Minds video podcast. Got a super special homie in today, Mr. James Mamaril Davis. James, thank you so much for coming on to the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
James, well, first of all, James, there's so much to talk about, and just even talking about how we met. I think we met BLW, right? Bruin Life Weekend when you were kind of hosted. I think in our room, was it that?
You
I
know,
believe.
I'll be honest. I didn't even go to BLW.
No. Dude, I might be thinking about someone else. Okay, never mind. But we
You might
did
be
meet at
thinking of
UCLA though.
uh oh, never mind. Yeah, no, we definitely met at UCLA, but not BLW. It was
Yeah.
we met for it was the Samahang Filipino
SP.
yeah, SP. Yep. That's what it
Absolutely.
was.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Good times, good times. Well, I mean, just taking us through just James, and we're gonna get to a lot of what you do today, but just maybe just talking a little bit about your UCLA experience and what that was like for you.
Yeah, sure. Um I mean, UCLA was great. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Being in Arizona, well, so I'm originally from California, from LA, and moving to Arizona and growing up there, I wanted to get back to Los Angeles, and that was something where, I was able to do. And, I had a great time, made a lot of good friends, and even keep up some great relationships now. You probably remember Christine and
Hmm.
John. Yeah, so still really great friends with them. And I'll be honest, I undergrad. I don't think I learned as much being an undergrad versus being in like a job afterwards. I feel like I learned a lot more being in so afterwards I went into research working at Mayo Clinic. And I felt like I learned a lot more life experience wise versus being an undergrad. But I think undergrad was more so just having fun. um, yeah. But for the most part I loved it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what did you major in?
Yeah, I majored in neuroscience and then minored in the study of religion. So
Oh, I
kind of
didn't know
two
that.
opposite, yeah, two opposite fields there. But I've always been interested in sort of the philosophy of like how people think, and neuroscience was a way to look at things more objectively, and then
Mm.
religion was more of a way to look at things more subjectively. So it was sort of a way for me to combine two like philosophies. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, what was that balance like having something, extremely science focused and then having something a little more North Campus or, broad for that matter?
Right. Well, I'd say pretty difficult because, on one end, at that time I knew I wanted to be a doctor. So you spend a lot of time focusing on the science aspect of what you're learning. But then, you have if you want to incorporate another aspect such as religion, you have to sort of think more abstractly and more theoretically. So yeah, it's just two different ways of thinking, and yeah, I mean, it's pretty difficult though to manage. It's not easy, but if you, it's like with anything. If you like what you're learning, like for me, I love what I learn. Like I just love learning in general. So managing those two were, an absolute horror. Yeah. So I think with anything, if you love it, it's going to be easy.
Absolutely. And I think you just kind of hit it on the head there and just maybe talking a little bit about, coming from, a university, background, going to UCLA for undergrad, and you just said it, you love learning. Maybe talking about like the difference between like learning and then like being in the school system. So for if we're talking about like undergrad, like there's obviously differences. You learn things inside the classroom, but you also learn a
Yeah.
lot outside the classroom. So maybe just even
Sure.
comparing, that dynamic.
Yeah. Well, so for me, it's learning in the classroom. I think you have to step outside and sort of not look at it as sort of a chore, because that's sort of what we're grown up with. When we go to school, it's sort of okay. We have to do this and that. But for me, when it comes down to it, like I love knowing things and just being knowledgeable. So when I step into the classroom, I look at it as an opportunity to grow my knowledge base and sort of push the boundary in that side, because also if you look around the world, especially, if you don't live in America, education opportunities are just so, you know, it's not easy to come by.
Mm.
So I think, realizing that we have this opportunity is, I think, just, more than anything. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's it's a big thing. It's a big thing to talk about. I know it's one thing to know a lot, and then to also just to grow up
Yeah.
in the education system. And I'm sure you know your fair share of people that are doing well that maybe didn't go to college, and obviously
Right.
something
Absolutely.
that it was something we wanted to do. And for you, having a little bit more of like a set path in terms of wanting to be a doctor, and it's essential. You can't
Yep.
just decide. There's a certain curriculum and set of skills that you have to learn before you do that. And so, if you can maybe just take us through even just the origins and just kind of deciding like, hey, I want to do this and I'm going to commit to this and actually following through with it. Like, what was that whole thing like?
For going to med school, for wanting to go
Just
into med school.
wanting to go to med school, man, like that inspiration.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So my great grandpa had a big part in my life, and he had when I was in high school or junior high, he got Alzheimer's disease, and initially, I was thrust into this like caretaker role, and that's sort of when I knew that I liked, well, not liked, but I enjoyed helping others, and not only that, but learning what's going wrong. So when at that time, even though I was so young, I was already opening books and reading about Alzheimer's disease and reading, okay, what treatments are there, what can I do as like a, I don't know, 13-year-old. um, and then after that, it was just the learning side of things that I really enjoyed. So like just being in school and learning about biology, or learning about the brain, learning about the heart.
Mm.
I think it's so cool knowing what's going on inside of our bodies, because then we can use that knowledge to help others who might be in need. So I think if it's like finding the opportunity, like I said, not a lot of people have opportunities like we do. And I think, like, for me, it's just more so paying things forward. And I like, from the way I look at it is like complacency. So complacency, I think, is man's or woman's like worst enemy.
Mm.
So eh, and the position that we're in, just being in America, by itself, I think you have to try to take like advantage of every opportunity that you can. And for me, medicine, I just really enjoyed right off the bat. So yeah, started with my great grandpa, and then yeah, pursued med school. Yeah, but initially, I mean, I actually didn't get in right away. So
Mm.
I applied right out of college, but didn't get in. And then yeah, and then I took a couple years off and then reapplied and got in. So a lot of it was persistence.
Mm.
And yeah, so now I'm here.
Absolutely. And I just, I wanted to, in a way, I can kind of empathize with you because I was also in that position, being a caretaker at a younger age, kind of the only one really available during the day, taking care of my grandma. And it kind of had the opposite effect on me because I really like
Interesting.
it's, you how taxing it is mentally and physically to have to lift and assist, your
Sure.
grandparents, and you see them. It was really like it was easy to do that for them. It never felt like work. And of course it was hard.
Right.
But I was just imagining to even like to have to like to bear that kind of weight for others. I was just like, man, like this is very tough for someone that I know and absolutely love. And it's like to have that same passion and that purpose for literally everyone that you see, all your patients or whoever you're working with. It was really like a, I feel like I can only do this, you know for those that
Yeah.
I, if that makes sense. It just
No, it
it felt
does.
so taxing. And so it's so wild to see how that same kind of growing up in that and being, like you said, thrust into that caretaker position kind of had opposite effects on us. And so
Right. Absolutely.
it kind of leading to you to, pursuing med school. And maybe even talk a little bit too about, it's not it's pretty common to have those gap years in between school. I think undergrad, especially coming from university like UCLA, it is very rigorous. And so maybe you talk about like what those gap years did for you,
Yeah.
to like maybe being like refreshing to start med school and having some time away from the classroom.
Yeah. No, I mean, I look back and if I got in right away, I mean, I probably would have hated my life just because, you look at students here and who got in right away, and you could kind of see like a little bit of immaturity because they didn't really have life experience outside. And they're also, maybe getting a little burnt out just because, all they've been doing is just study, which is,
Mm,
it's important, but, they didn't really have that break. And so that's what I think was great, is I was able to like learn other, I was honestly able to sort of find myself, because during college I sort of got out of the routine of, I guess, me, like as a person, and then I actually found triathlon during my gap years. Yeah, and then that, like being fit, sort of like sort of set the stage for who I wanted to be, as a person going forward, just in life,
mm,
because I was at a point where, not everyone gets to, there's always like there's a stage before you get to where you are right now, and that stage is it's not good, but you're sort of in a rut before you get to the peak level of what you can be.
mm.
um I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, and I think just for those that are tuning in, listening to the podcast, whether it's online or if it's on YouTube and seeing us, um, James and I actually reconnected because I mean, constant during a time, especially during the at the time of recording this video, is we're still in the midst of a pandemic, and you're trying to be off social media. For me personally, like trying to lay off of it and not rely on it as much. And you're one of those people that seeing what you were posting, and there was just a genuine, I want to share this and I'm doing this for me. And it wasn't like approval. And it was so inspiring, whether it was seeing you like riding the bike
Thank
or
you.
like these
I
action
appreciate that.
shots during these rigorous events, and you doing the triathlon. If you can just take us, you said you found the triathlon and doing these kinds of things during your gap years, and just talk about like how life changing that was for you.
Yeah. No, well, to be honest, it all started after a breakup. So I had my heart broken. And then at first it was sort of something where it was kind of like a fuck you kind of thing.
Mm,
Just because, I wasn't fit at all during that relationship. And she was. So, it was sort of like okay, I'm going to prove you wrong sort of thing. And then it transformed into like a performance. So once I got over the breakup, then it became this performance based, I guess you could say, activity for me.
mm,
And through that, you build like through that you build like this. Yeah, I'm gonna use this phrase because when David Goggins was, David Goggins, but he talks about like building this armor around your mind, and you're building like this shield for, to tackle basically anything that comes your way. So if something bad or dramatic happens, in your life, you're able to handle that not with ease, but with a lot less stress than you were beforehand.
mm,
In triathlon and doing like these rigorous, fitness activities, it shapes your how you see, um, basically anything. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
no, absolutely. And I mean, if it's at least in my group of friends, it's I there's not too many, if anyone else I know, that's doing what you're doing in terms of not only doing triathlon but also doing it with med school. And if you can even just
Yeah,
talk about in terms of what the training is like, the trainings
Yeah.
like for a triathlon, I mean, you're talking biking and you're talking swimming and running. I mean, these are all rigorous activities in their own right. And now putting that together and mixing them and doing them consecutively, like how do you, if you can disclose to us, like how do you even prepare and train for that mentally and physically, emotionally, spiritually?
Right, right. Well, a lot of it is, most of it is mental, just because, you set the stage for what you want to do. And for me, the way I look at it is I've always wanted to like push the boundary of what I can do with not only my mind, but like what I can do with my body and how I can push past, like push past what tells me to stop, essentially. And so, I think if you love something enough, you're going to find a way to do it.
Mm.
And with medicine, I love medicine. I love learning. I love coming into the library. I have a fat smile on my face, ready to study. Even with training, I wake up, what, 5 a.m. every morning. And, I'll either, sometimes I'll take, one day off, but most of the time it's actually I'm working out every single day. So I'll swim 3 times a week for about 30 to 40 minutes each time. And then, like 2,000 yards or so. And then,
Just
yeah, that's
freestyle, or do you switch up
yeah,
the
it's all
like?
freestyle. For
Okay,
me, it's all freestyle.
okay,
Swimming's really hard though, just because you have to have the right technique.
yeah.
But yeah, so per week I'm doing about 6,000 yards swimming wise.
Jesus
And
Christ.
then yeah, and then biking, I'll bike 3 to 4 times a week, each time about an hour, hour 20, for a total of like 4.5 to 5 hours per week.
Oh my
Um,
God.
yeah,
Are you doing flat? Are you doing hills? Are you doing courses just around the city? Like how are you biking? Like,
yeah. So I switch it up. So it's sometimes I'll be outside, but most of the time I'm on my trainer. So
okay.
there's this indoor trainer you attach your bike to, and then it hooks up to this like virtual like reality on your TV. It's called
Uh-huh.
Zwift. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then your avatar populates, and when you bike, the avatar moves. Yeah, and then the trainer mimics hills and mountains. So then the resistance goes up, when you're
Okay.
going up like a hill. So I'll do that. But then I'll also Tucson down here, we have a really great. It's called the Loop,
Yes.
where
Uh-huh.
you've heard of it.
Yeah. Hmm.
Oh, sweet. Yeah,
From
but
James,
it's
from other James Pizzello.
oh, nice, dude. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
him. And yeah, it's like 100 miles of paved roads that are with no lights. So that's just mainly flat. But actually, if you go throughout the whole thing, you get an elevation gain of about 3,000 feet. So I switch it up. And then yeah, and then running. I'll do about like 3 hours per week. So yeah, like before race, like if I'm just training in general, I'll try to hit like 8 to 10 hours per week. And then if I'm training for an actual like big race, then I'll probably get up to like 13 to 14 hours a week training. And yeah. So, but like I said, it's all you're building, like it builds this plate of armor on in your mind. And also it's so, for me, it's so free and it's so relaxing because you
Mm,
spend so much time with yourself that you work through your insecurities, and you kind of figure out what, like when in my breakup and how I got started with this. I started delving into, okay, what is it about me, and then you start realizing, like, okay, maybe I was, a little jealous, maybe, I wasn't as nice, and then those things, and then you start delving even further. Okay, why am I like that? Then you start going into your childhood, and then you start thinking, like, okay, maybe like things, went down this path, and maybe I think this way. And then now, once you have that, once you start knowing your insecurities, later on, when you're put in similar situations, or even like, different situations, you start thinking like, okay, I'm not gonna, I could act this way, but I know I'm not going to, because I've worked past that already. You
yeah.
work through things that you didn't know you had to work through. It's like your own therapist, essentially. You spend so much time with yourself that you're able to work through all of these things that you didn't even know you had problems with. And then next thing you know, your emotions, you feel very stable.
And do you like what was even, beginning that training? Obviously the regimen you kind of just said is kind of where you're at now, but if you can kind of maybe go back to when you first found, yourself training and being more, into like, training and health and wellness and all the sorts of things, like what was the regimen like in the beginning? Like how does one even, that's such a huge mountain to
You
climb. So if you just,
start.
yeah, if you can just take us, like, for those that are interested or those that want to like challenge and better themselves or that are interested, what's kind of like, how did you start and what were you kind of doing in terms of swimming, cycling, and also
Yeah.
running?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I mean, it's not easy, and you shouldn't be starting out like, like crazy, right? So you definitely start off small.
Mhm.
Like if you have no cardio history whatsoever, I mean, get out for a run, like maybe like 10 minutes a day, for 5 days a week, right? And then you slowly build up, right, after that. And it's not something for me, for training, because I read a lot of like what pro triathletes do, and they never train for like distance. So that's a lot. I mean, yeah, distance. So like that's a lot of amateurs will shoot for like, okay, I'm going to run for 10 miles, or I'm going to run for 6 miles, or I'm going to bike for 10 miles. I think the biggest thing is set a time and then work through that time. So like,
Mm,
say you're going to run 15 minutes, start off with that. So don't say I'm going to run a mile, say you're going to run 10 minutes. I think that's huge. But then also nutrition is another big thing. I
mm,
think before you even start training, I think you kind of have to have a good nutrition plan. So, for triathlon, they actually call nutrition like the fourth discipline. There's swimming,
mm.
biking, and running. Nutrition is essentially the fourth one. Um, you can't, if you're eating sort of like, like sort of bad foods, I guess, like, fast foods all the time, your
Yeah.
training isn't gonna replicate that. So, for me, I turned vegan,
Wow.
around the same time, just because I did a lot of research on, like what essentially like what foods do to your body.
Mm,
And also, I've never been a person where I look at food as sort of like, oh, I have to have this. For me, I look at food as more of like a fuel, right?
mhm.
So, yeah, I don't know if I answered that question.
No, definitely. I wanted
Like
to
I was
just kind
taking
of,
a lot of tangents.
no, 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 no. It's great. I wanted to get more into just, your nutrition and how you chose that because obviously when we start to get into the healthier options, vegetarian, vegan, pescatarian, we kind of, across the board, you'll generally see prices start to go up, which is kind
Yeah,
of why people opt for fast food and people opt for
yeah,
those options are just quick and easy. So
yeah.
maybe if you can just take us a little bit about like how you plan and your nutrition, whether that's grocery shopping or what foods you're constantly eating, if you can share that with us, that kind of help you in your training.
Yeah, no, before that, another thing about triathlon, it's probably one of the most expensive sports. So, that's another thing where like you can't just jump on it.
Yeah.
Just because if you have, especially if you want to do well, you kind of have to have a good bike, and bikes don't come cheap. But anyways, to jump back to the food question, um, how did I start off? Like, how did I start planning? Well, definitely a lot of research, So that's something I think, you kind of have to, yeah, you have to break down the boundary of seeing food as like, I don't know. It's hard because food's another topic because it's sort of like meat, like red meat is sort of addictive, um, because there's some compounds in there. I forget what they're actually called, but there's some components in red meat that actually, you crave it. If you don't have red meat in a certain amount of time frame, your body will crave, that food.
Mm,
So what I did is I did a lot of research on like that, So, okay, how else am I going to get protein? There's tofu, there's plant-based meats. Tofu's really cheap. Tofu
mhm,
you can get for like you can get whole like pounds, boxes of tofu for like $5.
mhm,
So it's not hard to eat healthy, you just have to look around, because the first thing you will see, especially if you go in the grocery store, is the most expensive item.
Yeah.
But I mean, one of the biggest things is transitioning to like whole fruits and whole vegetables. So not eating like packaged or frozen, like
Hmm.
blueberries or strawberries or I don't know, like legumes. So
Hmm.
definitely buy them like whole, right? So like whole, apples, bananas, and yeah. And then nuts too. Nuts are another big thing.
Hmm.
So then you can go and eat like like almonds and some people, if you feel like you want a snack, sometimes the general person is going to reach for like a I don't know, like chips, but
Yeah.
but you can reach for like a trail mix or something.
Hmm.
It's a lot healthier alternative, and also it helps like with your energy, and then but I know it's not easy, like doing these things. It's hard, it takes a certain like discipline, right? It takes a certain like mindset. You have to want to be better for yourself to be
Mm.
better. And like not a lot of people want to or people want to do that, but it's doing it is the hard thing, and yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why it is truly inspiring seeing your posts because, being, an athlete in my own right and just,
Yeah.
obviously the level you're doing
Yep.
is crazy, is in another league, but even just understanding that to the basic foundation of just, it's not, especially for you, it's not just a physical lifestyle change, but it really is a mental. It really is like, your intake and what your output is going to be. It's really going to affect your performance. And so, even I'm sure you've probably been cooking a lot more, and
Yeah.
obviously you're pretty much taking care of all
Exactly.
your own meals, and even that lifestyle change of probably saving a lot of money too instead of eating out. Like you're taking charge of your body and you're basically alleviating yourself of potential future bills that you could be
Yep.
clogging your arteries or
See.
whatever
Yep.
have you. So
Exactly.
it's truly inspiring to hear, like, not only the physical changes that you're going through or even the regimen or the discipline, but diet. That's what they say for a lot of physique or
Yep.
fitness, right? Is 90% diet. Essentially, it's so important that we neglect. And I think that's another thing I want to touch on too, James, is just discipline. I think the fact that you're doing this art form, and I'm gonna call it an art form for the purposes of this episode, but just doing this art form and not only doing that and changing so many things in your life, but you're balancing that with school. And you talked about waking up at 5 a.m. every day,
Yeah.
6 out of 7 days a week. And
Yeah.
just talk, most people, surface level, would think that's going to kind of deter from your studies. But
Right.
maybe you can talk about like how this lifestyle change has ultimately benefited you in your studies and in med school.
Well, see, people generally don't like being, uncomfortable, right? And the way I see it is, I want to put myself in uncomfortable positions, and that's how you build sort of that plate, like David Goggins says, you build that
Mhm.
plate of armor around your mind. How do you do that? Put yourself in these uncomfortable spots that say, shit, dude, I want to get out of here. Like I don't want to be in this position. And those are the type of things that help build that discipline. So you know, like initially, when I first started swimming, I was scared shitless, right? Because I
Mm.
I was swimming in lakes and like, and I didn't know what I was doing essentially. And I mean, in my mind, I was just like, dude, why are you doing this? Like you got to get the hell out of here. But like, those are the things that help build and help make you who you are. So
Mm.
like the more times you put yourself in an uncomfortable spot, the easier it is to tackle anything really, I think, that comes your way.
Yeah.
And like so that's why I wake up so early. I nobody really likes waking up at that time, but like you put your you have to put yourself in that spot, right? And say, look, I'm going to do this, and then it gets easier. But it doesn't get easier because you like it. It gets easier because you find those uncomfortable spots easier to handle,
Mm,
right? So then when you are confronted with something that, isn't, is hard, then it becomes easy. Like, I'll give an example. So in we have like these societies groups in our med school, in Tucson, and we have like we'll go see a patient in the hospital. We call it bedside, and then we'll come back and we'll have to give like an oral presentation on you know on the patient, right? So we'll have to give the history, the physical exam, and our mentor, like our physician overseer, she says, I don't expect you guys to stand when you give the oral presentation, but in the future you probably will have to, So nobody stands, right? It's like a group of about six of us, nobody ever stands, but I always stand, right? Because it's like, yeah, no shit, you're going to be nervous when you're giving these, especially for the first time, and if you stand, it makes things even worse, right? Because then you might get a little sweaty, It's the first time you've ever seen a patient. You're standing up and
mm.
you're like, damn, well, now what am I going to say? But the way I see it is, okay, I'm going to stand up here and, if I'm going to feel nervous and I'm going to experience that, right? And then that, like putting yourself in those spots, I think then makes things easier, not just for that, but like other things. Um, yeah.
You being in a place where you're so comfortable putting yourselves in these uncomfortable scenarios, right? Um, Again, kind of taking it to like a micro level in terms of someone who isn't
Yeah.
used to that or isn't there yet, and even breaking it down to its simplest form, like how would you suggest to someone that may be tuning in on this, how they can start in their own journey, breaking those boundaries?
Yeah, it's just doing it, I mean, there's really nothing. There's not a trick to it, I mean, you, there's a lot of things where, you want to just sit down and I don't know, just be comfortable, right? But I think if something in your mind tells you I don't want to be in this position, I would say just do it, because that's for me. It's just like ripping off a band-aid.
Mm,
And yeah, I mean, of course, it wasn't easy like doing these things, but just starting out, there's really no like handbook to starting out to do these things. Like if you want to do something, just do it.
absolutely.
Even if you're scared to do it, like just do it.
Mm,
Like yeah, it's uncomfortable as shit, but like I mean it, I don't know. It's there's like no magic word I think that you can say, but I know what you mean. Like how do you like when you how do you take it down and how do you say like how do you start off, right?
yeah.
How you start off is just doing doing that. That's how you
Mm,
start off. There's no like there's no build up to it.
mm.
Um, yeah, I mean it's yeah, you just gotta. I think we're just rip off the band-aid because, I mean, I was in that position too. How do I get started? How do I get to, how do I get to this position? How do I get to feel comfortable about who I am, right? And I think that just starts off with, like I'm saying, like rip off the band-aid. Just put yourself in that spot that makes you feel uncomfortable, and then more spots down the road, you're gonna start feeling a lot better about how to handle certain things.
Absolutely. And you've constantly have reiterated this throughout this conversation, just talking about putting yourself in uncomfortable positions and challenging yourself in new ways, right?
Yeah.
Um, you're at a point now, James, where it's been a few years that you've been doing, the triathlon, and I guess at this point, what's the motivation or what keeps you coming back to this, that you've obviously you're well established in the way that you operate in this lifestyle. And it's amazing and it's really inspiring to see from the sidelines, right? But what personally does it do for you? Like why do you keep doing this? Why do you wake up at 5 a.m.? Why do you all these sacrifices and this discipline? It's what's the reason? What's the personal reason for you?
Yeah, now for me, it's honestly just to maximize who I can be.
Mhm.
I feel like I can be something even better. And I don't know what opportunities are going to come down the road. So everything that I do now, I feel like I'm preparing for what's going to happen, you know, 4, 5, 6 years down the road. Um, I want to go in. Well, yeah, I mean, it's also just pushing the boundary itself. I know I can do a little more, and yeah, I mean, it also becomes easy just because you do it so much. It just becomes routine, and so that's what I like. So, if you do something, if you have a routine and you continue to do the same thing, then you can trust that routine, right? So,
Mm.
then when you're put in, it's like, for example, like studying. If you keep studying and you have this routine on what you do, once the test rolls around, you you shouldn't really feel nervous because you can look back and say, look, I followed this routine and I'm going to trust what the work I put in, right?
Hmm.
It's like it's like basketball too. Like Kobe used to say all the time, same thing. You know, like trust the process, right?
Hmm.
So you're going to keep working, and then by the time the game rolls around, it's just easy because
Mm.
you put in all the work, and you can just trust what you did. So that's how I feel about it. Like if once residency rolls around, and once like real work or like real once I'm an actual physician, I can look at what I did in the past and say, look, I put in all the work and I can just trust that and not be nervous about heading into the unknown. Um, and same with like racing. So, I keep doing this to put myself in the same exact thing because I think for me, I can relate that to everything else. Like pushing to be a better me helps I think other people because it helps me become like a better son, to my parents. It helps me become a better brother to my brothers, helps me even become a better friend, right? Because the more comfortable I am with myself, the more happy, the more loving I am to myself, the more I'm able to give love to others, right?
Absolutely.
And so yeah, I mean, I think it's not necessarily just for me because the way I see it is I'm doing this for me for others. So I'm not like, I don't have, so I'm not irritable, I guess, towards others, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
So I'm doing these things, I think, to help others. And yeah, because I think, my best me is, for, I think, yeah, I don't know, to help others.
Absolutely. You said a couple gems there, but I really wanted to focus on just you talked about maxing out and being the best that you could be, maxing out your potential, and it's wild because that's actually a phrase that I say a lot to
Nice.
students I've mentored, kids I
Yeah.
teach, adults that I teach. It's almost that we're so great that we're afraid to really achieve that.
Yeah.
And in to seeing what the triathlon world has done and has helped shape you and making you this fearless person in that sense of just going for it, doing it, and learning along the way and not
Yep.
trying to think too much and trusting that
Exactly.
work. And it's even just the way that you speak and the way you carry yourself. And like you said, I don't know how to explain it, to those that are listening, but it's just whether you see it and you're watching this and you can see James's face or you're just listening. I mean, the conviction that which you talk about these things, I just genuinely feel it's just like, look, this is what I do. I've hit rock bottom, and I've been there, and seeing you rebound like that, and seeing you just being fearless and just attacking with purpose is just it's it's so, I don't know, it's just so encouraging for
And
for me
see,
as for me as a listener.
right. And see, that's the thing. I mean, I was never like just this, I didn't come out like this, right?
Hmm.
Like, I mean, I was a pretty, I was pretty introverted and like not introverted, but also, I don't know, I was really insecure about myself. I, like there were points where, I would look in the mirror and I'd be like, you're kind of like a piece of shit, dude. Like, like you're not doing anything, like what, how are you, like, what are you doing essentially,
Yeah.
what can you do to be better, right? And so that's where you know that's the like doing these things helps you put helps you put yourself in a position to be a better person, right? And also I realized like we all have like these boxes, right? I think we're all in our own little box, right?
Yeah.
And it's up to us to shape that box, and like my best box, is going to be different than like your box, right?
Yeah.
Or like LeBron James's box, right? His box is to be the best in basketball, or something like that.
Yeah.
Mine, I don't know. I want to be the best like physician I can be. I don't know what specialty yet, but like
Absolutely.
that's what I'm shaping, and doing triathlons. And I feel like doing triathlons is going to help me be the best physician I can be,
Hmm.
because like I said, I'm turning myself into this person that I love, and you could do anything that you love, right? And like painting, I think you have to find something that you really enjoy doing just for yourself, because if you if you keep doing things, and it's fine, I think, to do things for other people, but if you keep doing things for other people without first finding something for you, you can't you I don't think you can help others. Like, you can't give love to others, essentially,
Mm,
and yeah, I don't know, I think it's really important to find something where you can lose yourself in, so you can, give back, or so you can be the best person out there for, what you're trying to do. So that's why, like, I lose myself in triathlon, so I know I can be the best at what I can do in medicine. um, and yeah.
and I just really feel I can empathize with you on you talking about looking in the mirror and just being like, what are you
Yeah,
doing?
yeah,
And I was actually having a conversation with someone, I think on their podcast, maybe like a couple months ago, and they had asked me, and to a much lesser degree, like obviously trying to figure out how to still work out during a pandemic and what fits my lifestyle. You talking about your box, I started, I didn't want to overwhelm myself, so I just started doing like
I
just
saw those. Yep,
all at home workouts. So
I saw those. Yeah, I saw your stories.
I started in April, just doing like even just 100 push-ups a day variation,
Yeah,
and literally
I like that.
last month I just switched it up to 200 a day.
That's
and
wild.
and but it's crazy because that really, they were asking me how I even started that, and I had told them, well, I had been doing this throughout high school and college, not as consistent as I am now, and not with the same technique, and I've obviously gotten so much better, but it really started from insecurity. And it's so wild to
Yeah,
take, it's so awesome to hear, you taking a negative experience or a negative, time, and turning it into a positive, and you literally being the quintessential example of, seeing like adversity, but in a way kind of running towards it and embracing it, because
yeah,
it's going to help sharpen that armor, like you talked about, around your mind, around your
yep,
physical body. And I think it's not even just a lifestyle change at that point, it's really a mental shift. And
exactly.
I think that's something that I think that what I'm trying to get at here is, it sounds so simple, and which is why maybe people might just think it's like BS, but I think even the mental capacity at which you operate is on a different level, and on a different level in
Because
a
it's
good way.
hard.
Exactly. And
It
it's
sounds, it sounds simple. It sounds easy, but it's hard because, those uncomfortable spots, your mind tells you, I don't want to do this. Like, fuck that, dude. Get me out of here. Like, you're like, that's what your mind is telling you. And it's like, you have to rewire that and say, look, no, dude, like, I'm going to take control of this. I'm going to, I'm going to do this. Right. And then I'm going to get better at that. And then I'm going to get better at confronting these situations. And then when you get better at confronting those situations, then you get better at, then you just become sort of unstoppable in doing what you want to do. Right. Then you can dream chase, and then you can
mm,
shoot for plan A. You don't even have to have a plan B. Right. Because then if what I always say this, I say, like, it's funny because Kyle Kuzma said the same exact thing, but I was saying this before him. But I like to shoot for the moon, because if you miss, you'll still be in the stars, right? And it's
mm,
like, yeah, I mean, it's not easy. So, you know, it's the rewiring, I think, that takes time, and it takes practice. But it's to get started, you have to put yourself in spots that say, I fuck, dude, I want to get out of here, but still do what you want to do,
Yeah.
it's like saying exactly like, okay, I'm gonna wake up at, I don't know, I'm gonna start off, I'm gonna wake up at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, and I'm gonna I don't know, I'm gonna go for a walk. When you wake up at 6 a.m. when that alarm goes off, and you don't generally do that, say you generally wake up at like 10 a.m., your initial thought is going to be like, maybe tomorrow, I'll
Mhm.
get it tomorrow. You turn the alarm off. But see, that's the thought that you have to say, look, dude, no, I've had so many of these thoughts. And because, maybe you have too, but I mean, I know for me, like when I was, even just starting out, I'd set my alarm for 6 a.m. Like I said, 6 a.m. would hit, and I'd be like, okay, maybe I could do it tomorrow. Yeah, maybe, I'll get started tomorrow. Yeah, look, that sounds good. Today's all right. But see, that's the thing where it's like, no, today's not all right, dude. Get started. You've said this so many times. So it's rewiring your brain, and it's saying, it's not listening essentially to what you initially say.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going against sort of your instinct, and going against like that primal instinct, and saying, and taking control, I think, of what you think about. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I've heard on several occasions Kobe and hearing David Goggins talking about this, and just, they
Yeah,
can't even
definitely my role
they
models. Yeah.
they can't even, absolutely, they can't even fathom, being surrounded by
Yep, exactly.
lazy
Like lazy
people.
people. Yep.
And so obviously, I think the majority of, you know population, the world,
Yep.
doesn't operate, the way that you do. And so I'm sure you come across your fair share of those people. How does
Yep.
that get, because I feel like when you're operating on a different wavelength, there's almost a disconnect, right? So how do
Yeah,
you even balance those people, because there's far more
there
people
is.
that don't operate the way you do. So how do you even interact with those types of people if you do come across them?
That's something like I'm still learning about, because in medicine, you can't just brush people off essentially.
Yeah.
It's not like being in sports. It's good for Kobe because he's essentially trying to be the best. He doesn't have to be liked by everyone.
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
but I know exactly it's actually really interesting that you bring that up, because yeah, I don't want to sound like arrogant, but
No.
like it comes off a little like, intimidating, like the way you think about things. And it's you have to step back and realize not everyone's gonna think the way that you do. And the way you interact with people has to be completely different, because not everyone is going to have the security blanket that you do, even if you do. um, Most people are going to be pretty insecure, right? So um, and that's something like you have to, I think, step back and maybe just even help. So like for me here, I had this encounter. I was actually pretty taken back, but one student here was like, he told me, he was like, hey, you've been coming off like a little like hierarchical, and like you kind of just flex your knowledge, like here and there. And I was like, whoa, like I didn't know that. And because I do these things where sometimes, like, I'll ask questions, but like I'll quiz, like, okay, like quiz, I'll ask questions to students, but to help them, right? Like it's not intentional, and um, but yeah, that's something that I think you have to learn how to like step back. Yeah. And learn how to like interact, I think. But like I said, not everyone's going to be secure. So um, yeah, the way you come off is it's a fine. There's a boundary, I think, and you have to learn how to like walk that boundary. That's something I'm still learning, because I know I come off a little bit arrogant to people still. So that's something I'm working on.
Well, I will, come to your defense and will say, it's a we, and this goes for both sides of, that argument. We only see what's in front of us and you don't see the work that you put in. And so when you're putting in this work, not just on the track or in the water or on the road, but when you're doing that 6, 7 times, 6, 7 days out of the week,
Yep.
and you make these lifestyle changes also to your nutrition. I mean, you're talking a true 180 switch with how you operate. And so I would assume and would think you're putting in all this work and all this discipline. Yeah, you might come off a little arrogant. Doesn't mean you are, but you're
Yeah.
proud. You're proud and you embrace exactly who you are. And you just, to me, it just comes off. You just want to share that. And you're kind of almost oozing, just
Exactly. Yeah.
it
Like
just looks
I want other people to be better too, like I want,
absolutely.
but I know it comes off a little, like overzealous, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And you know, I, because like I can't wait till I'm a physician as well, just because I really want to like mentor other kids, and like just mentor
Mm,
students and just be like I want to help others you know, get to where they can be because I feel like everyone can, it's just you have to find yeah. But thanks though, I appreciate that.
yeah. And I mean, it's
Appreciate that.
it would suck to, maybe just learn, something really like you have, right? These skills
Yeah,
that you're learning, it's not only difficult to learn, but it's also difficult to retain and be consistent and have longevity in that. I would imagine it's like learning a really, really, um, a really difficult language that's rarely spoken, and then it's like you can't even communicate with anyone because not too many people know and understand exactly how to navigate through that. So it is very refreshing to just kind of hear someone, of your stature like operating on the scale that you do, and balancing it. It's not like you're just doing triathlon, you're also just so happen to be in med school too. These are two very
I'm still no one though, man. You're making me sound like
no, but
I'm still figuring. No, man, I'm still no one.
no, but and I think that statement right there just tells me and tells the audience everything. It's like you're doing all these things, but human nature is, whatever we get, we always want more, and it's not bad. There are times where it can be greedy, but you're really just living by that code. You want to keep improving, you want to keep getting better. You
Yeah,
said it, you said
exactly.
human, man's, woman's worst thing is to get stagnant, complacent,
Yep.
and to stay still, and you absolutely don't want to do that.
Yeah,
And so
no.
it's really awesome to see that you're taking that and applying it to all aspects of your life, and just being a living example. And I hope that, for those that are tuning in and are just listening to this, that you can take, maybe bits of these like golden nuggets that James has here, and you can figure out how these can apply to your life, whether that uncomfortability, it isn't triathlon, it is something else. Maybe just getting uncomfortable and like picking up a book. You haven't read a book since we haven't been in school. You know what I'm saying? So just trying to figure out what that is. I feel like it's different for everyone, which
Exactly.
is just figuring that out, right? It's just figuring that out.
Yep.
And now too, like, okay, now kind of curious with you just balancing all these things that are very time consuming. You have a schedule that's
Sure.
pretty strict. I mean, are there other things that you do aside from, being a triathlete and being in med school? Like, what can you do for leisure? I know that you do a lot of, but that's like training. So I don't know, are there other things that you get to do where you get to really relax, and you get to just be like 99% of the world, where you just get to just kind of just be.
It's funny you say that because for me, like I love I love just like reading and learning, right? So
Yeah.
when I study, actually find that leisurely. Like
Wow.
it's yeah, I know how that sounds. Like I'm saying, like when I walk up to the library, I mean, I'm just, I'm so excited just to like get things, to just like learn something, right? Like, we're in our neuro block right now and we're learning about like all of these spinal cord tracks, and how things like cross in our brain. And then like I just have a great time like thinking about how, I can apply that to like a patient, right? And I don't know. It's yeah, I don't really yeah, I mean, and then triathlon too. It's just I don't know. It's not like it's not for me. Those are leisurely stuff. So I mean, it's not. Yeah, I don't know. I know it sounds like a yeah. I sound like a little nerd, huh?
No, no, it's great because you can see that, whether you identify yourself as that, it's cool to see your spin on it. It's not you know, the quintessential, like, you think of a nerd as, like, I don't know even what we think of as nerds nowadays, but I'm pretty sure you wouldn't associate being a triathlete and doing all these very strenuous activities both physically and mentally. So it's really cool to see you to stretch that imagination and to kind of broaden those borders and being like, you can identify yourself as that nerd, but you can be doing these really awesome things and
Yeah.
pushing yourself forward. um I didn't want to get into
Well, I
as
mean, watching sports, I watch sports still, so I guess you could say that's pretty leisurely.
So are you Arizona? Are you LA? Or
Yeah,
what
no,
kind
I'm
of
all LA.
so
Yeah,
you're just
LA Lakers, LA Dodgers.
so it's been a
Um,
good sports year for you.
oh God, yeah. And then I'm a big Raider fan. I used to be, yeah, yeah, I know. Like why the Raiders? So like from, originally from LA, and then when I was a kid, I was like, oh, I have to like all LA teams, so that's why it's LA Lakers, LA Dodgers. And then at the time they didn't have a football team, so it was either
Yeah.
the Raiders or the Rams a long time ago. And I was
Yep.
like, oh, the Raiders are badass. So then I picked the Raiders, and then it's just been like that ever since.
Interesting. Yeah, I found that interesting. I was like, Raiders. I was like, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm from San Diego, so I'm diehard San Diego Padres and Chargers still,
Yeah,
even though they're in
yeah,
LA. So I'm like
yeah.
Raiders, but respect, respect, James, respect. Um, I also, I did want to just ask, James, and considering our current climate, just
Yeah.
all other things that kind of aside, just you personally, like how have you been? How have you been during the pandemic? You have a lot on your plate, but just, if you were able to step back and just kind of look at things, like, how have you been during the whole pandemic?
I mean, like, can't complain. I mean, I'm still able to do things. So, I mean, just because I do triathlon, I'm still able to go outside and like run and bike and stuff.
Mhm.
So for me, it's like the pandemic did hit, but it didn't really affect what I do. Just because for medicine too, I mean, I'm in like I feel really grateful and blessed because a lot of people, lost their jobs, but like for me, I'm in med school, and it's like a lot of us are in med school, right? And we don't really have to worry about anything other than, medicine right now, or like other things that we do. So for me, I mean, you know, I, I don't want to come off sounding like, oh, again, like he's coming off a little arrogant, but like, I mean, I feel, just extremely, I think, grateful, just for the position that I'm in and the
Mm,
opportunities that I have. Yeah, I mean, they're like, yeah,
no,
just really, really grateful.
absolutely. And it's so wild how you said that word, but you said the position that you're in. And that's something that I've been talking to with a friend about, and just that idea and that concept of positioning. And I kind of learned this from my grandpa. And he was like a well-renowned chess player in the Philippines.
Oh, wow.
And even just learning that idea of like positioning and to think
Yeah,
about where you're at in life right now, and where everyone is at, it's really all positioning. And you've put yourself in a place where, the career that you're in, it's pretty like that's if there's something that's going to be safe, like, we're always going to need people taking care of
right,
others because we're constantly going to get sick. There's going to be new viruses mutating. We're going to get
right.
older. There's always going to be people in need, and we need people with that skill set, doctors,
Absolutely.
nurses. So you position yourself in a spot where it just so happens your passion is also something that's really valued, and that's going to have there's always going to be a spot. And that's just a testament to, just what you love, and just so happens to be that, and it's worked out. So I
That's why I
think,
just feel really lucky, just
yeah,
like extremely lucky. I mean, because you could, I have friends who like aren't working still.
yeah.
And it's tough because they want to do certain things with their lives, but they really can't because the pandemic has made it so difficult. So
Mm,
that's why that's why I just feel extremely grateful, extremely lucky just to be where I'm at, like the position you're saying. Yeah, there's no that's why, that's why I think it's great, because, I just want to continue paying it forward. So, hopefully down the road, I'll be able to.
Absolutely. And just continuing to evolve. I do hope, and I've seen it on my own personal journey, and I've seen it with a couple of friends that I keep in touch with. But I would hope that not only from the pandemic, from when it really hit in the states, like in March, to now, and then even after listening to you talk about your narrative and how you navigated, I really hope that people evolve and adapt, because we have to. The world is changing
Yep.
quicker and quicker and quicker, and there are things you want to do, but the world isn't the same it was 8 months ago.
Yep.
And it's important to know that, and it's important to adapt, and just you got to change. It's survival of the fittest.
Put
James,
yourself in that uncomfortable spot. Yeah.
exactly. And I kind of want to just to kind of, you've shared so much with us, James, in terms of med school and undergrad, and even just how you got into being a triathlete and how that's changed your life, and really embracing uncomfortability and insecurities. And and you're what, 24, 25?
25. Yeah.
Okay.
25.
You're 25, and you're really coming into your own. And I just want to ask you, if you could say anything to your 13-year-old self, what would you tell him?
Yeah. Just keep working hard. Just work hard. I mean, I think that's the biggest message that I think anybody should give to themselves. Not, if I were to look back, definitely just work hard. Just two words, just because, like I was talking about with routine, if you work hard, and you have that routine, you work hard for a routine, or you have the routine that, allows you to work hard, you can trust that in that's going to follow through with whatever you do. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it.
I appreciate it, and James, it's it really is just wild how, as much as we despise social media, it was, you've been on my mind. But just even, I remember seeing a specific post and be like, dude, I need to reach out to this guy. And it's super awesome to finally have made the schedules worked, and to have you on today, and to share just, a little bit of your story. And hopefully those that are listening and tuning in onto this episode, that you can use, part of James's story, just how you can apply it to your life, because everyone's life is different. And I'm looking forward, James, to a follow-up, to seeing how you're doing, and just talking more in depth about, what you've been up to. But until then, man, stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you for your time. And we'll talk to you soon, brother.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, James. I'll see you soon, man. Take care.
Yes, sir.